This is about trunk thickening, a question that have come up. There are two main approaches to this, and I'll go through that during this little video here. And we will look at trunk thickening on very small bonsai like Shohin or marmot bonsai, and on larger trees like this birch. First of all, when we talk about trunk thickening, we have to understand that the only thing that adds thickening to a trunk on a bonsai is volume of growth. We have to expand the growth of the tree, and we can do it, to put it very simple, in two ways. First of all, we can let branches grow, extend as long as we can, which is what adds mass to the trunk and the branches. And secondly, we can add more branch ramifications around an area, which also will help a little to expand that area. The reason I have a hawthorns at my side here with some long sticking branches is exactly to thicken parts of the tree, and we can more or less concentrate the thickening of a tree on the trunk, on specific branches, by letting growth elongate and add volume to that area. Because if we want to create a bonsai with a thick trunk which adds age to the tree beside bark structure and fine ramification, then thickening up trunks and branches is one of the most critical aspects in creating and designing a bonsai. Over time, of course, because this is not a quick fix. This is not something you can do overnight. This is something that takes time. As everything in bonsai does, time is a factor. If we take a close look to this Morten old Courses, this has been grown from a very primitive, ordinary nursery center stock, just bought as a little finger thickness trunk many years ago, and we are talking 25-30 years ago now, and it has a very nice thick little fat trunk now. But it didn't achieve that by being in a very small pot all the time. It achieved that trunk thickness by allowing it to grow in between in a little bit larger sized training pots. And when we talk about training pots, we simply just talk about a cheap pot, just for the purpose of adding more volume to the roots, giving them a bigger area to grow in. By doing that and allowing it to expand also the roots, not only the branches, then volume will begin to thicken, and as soon as it's placed in a small pot, that thickening will still happen, but it will be extremely slowly. If you notice on a bonsai a thick trunk, then try to examine that tree, and then you will find the evidence of having some part of the tree let grow freely early on. So if we turn this tree around, we are able to see that up here is a scar, now almost healed over at this time, but that scar is the evidence of some growths have been let to grow freely and elongated very long for a longer time to help thickening up the lower part here. Secondly, the finer ramification in here also helps thickening up some of the parts here, but that is a secondary thickening of that part of the branch. If we really want thickness, we have to let something grow freely, like this branch allowed to grow freely up here at the top, because I needed to gain some strength up here, but I also needed to, let's put it a little front here, needed to elongate some other branches to thickening up parts here. So part of bonsai design is just not only thickening an old trunk like this 100-year-old hawthorn found in an allotment and have been grown as a pre-bonsai now for 4 seasons or something. This big fat trunk has only been this because it was a larger piece. If it was grown from the short stump like the Courses, it would never have achieved this thickness. It needed to be allowed to grow for a long time. So how is it then happened to be in this small scale at the moment? Simply by cutting off the very long, elegant growth that growth that helps thickening up these parts. So if we examine the tree closer up, we'll be able to see there are scars in here. They are leftovers from branches that have been cut off, and these elongated thick branches is what made this part thickening up. Lower down here we can see a big hole here, and this has been carved out to make a natural appearance, but this is also reminiscent of a very large piece of growth that had been allowed to grow up, and it has been around this width here, this thickness, and that is what have made this to thicken up as much as this, and we end up with a thick, fat little trunk by cutting everything back. If we want to do the opposite, start with a smaller tree and let it grow to thicken up trunks, then we have to let some of that growth grow freely to thicken up the parts we want. So the top growth here is what thickens up the top part here. The side branch here, letting that grow freely, is what helps thicken up the inner part here. Then later, when time is, when this has been thickened up enough, then we cut this piece back and begin to grow up the final ramifications fell back here, and I have to take care of not chipping any trees here because of these elongated sacrifice branches, as we name them, because we know they are sacrificed later when they have done the purpose of thickening up this part. So thickening up trunks only is done by adding more volume to the tree, especially letting it expand. And another evidence of that is on the old birch over here. The birch here has a relatively slim trunk because that's the nature of birch, so it's not possible to make a really thick and fat trunk on a birch and still keep it as a bonsai. Yeah, I simply have to accept that it has the movement it has, but the evidence of what thickened up that trunk in the earlier days of the life, it was actually found very nearby here. I could walk it home, and it was dug up 7-8 years ago, maybe. I can't remember exactly, but it has this big, very interesting scar inside here, and that's evidence of a very big branch at some time that have been growing very high. I think when I chopped this tree down and took it home, it was maybe 4 meters in height. And I chopped it down to this size, and something has been sitting here, broken off. The scar is healing up, the colors around here, and I have this old wood here that I have preserved with a wood hardener, because I would not apply dim sulfur on a tree like this because it has this white parts. So the contrast is what makes it beautiful. So wood hardener was used to preserve the original color and withstand it from rotting. But the thing is, this branch have been growing high up here, broke up off in a storm or whatever happens, and that helps thickening up the trunk to this size. Let's swap trees to a juniper, and Ituigama juniper. And just to show you, it is the same technique, it's the same way to approach thickening up a trunk. With junipers, it is the same thing you have to do. You have to let some top growth grow from where you want the trunk to thicken up. So if we want to make the full trunk thicken up, we take a leader at the top, just let it expand, and then finally we cut it off, or we turn it into a din, which is typically a technique for junipers. You can see it here. There are a lot of deadwood here, a lot of deadwood branches here, and they are evidence of previous growth cut back. It could be just for the design, but they also had the purpose of thickening up that part. So if we turn the back to the front, you will see larger portions here, which evidence that there has been a very thick branch here just left to grow, to then cut off later as a sacrifice branch. We have other branches around here which also had the purpose of designing the tree. I just changed the design, but especially the thick one here have served the purpose of thickening up from the bottom up to here. And let's see if I can actually draw it standing like this. So the thing is, we have a thin piece of growth here. We have some soil, then we have a very young tree growing like this, having just one or two or three small side branches. To help this to expand, we simply need to let that top growth grow here. We put a leaf up here for the example of it. That's the top growth. When that elongates, then slowly we will also thickening up this part over time, and to help the bottom growth here, we also let that one grow freely to thicken up this part and also this part. If we let this one grow further, expand and expand and expand, we are expanding here, then this part of course will grow a little thicker, but it will thicken the full area down here as well. And if we then let some side branches here grow, then step by step we will add more volume. Now, when we have done this over some time, then we have to look into the next step, because first of all we had that elongated growth, then they have done this, and then we cut that sacrifice branch back here, and we also cut that one back here. Off they go. And then we can look at building more ramification at the lower parts, and that also helps thickening up these parts a little. So increasing the ramification here also helps increasing the trunk thickness here. And if this is not enough, then simply let a new leader grow or keep this one extending and get more thickness into the lower part. But this also demands that we have some root growth here. You need room for root growth to expand. To keep the tree in a larger training pot in the first years, or even keep it in the ground and then lift it from the ground every third year or something, and then cut the biggest clumps of very long roots back to keep smaller roots back so you can put that tree back in a bonsai pot later on. So I hope this was a little informative about adding volume to the trunk, because it is a topic often asked. But remember, it takes some time. It's not done in a weekend. Thank you for watching, and once more, congratulations to Bonsai Empire. I'm happy to contribute to the celebration.